Hello everybody and welcome to Nathan on Shuffle and to my latest new album Spotlight. This is where I put the spotlight on a new release in the prog world that I think is worthy of attention and worthy of recommending to all of you. And I've got a great one here today, a quick contender for one of my favorite albums of the year. I've been loving it as I've been listening to it just over this past weekend. And it is the Deer Hunter's new album, Antimai. Just an incredible release. Somewhat of a concept record built in this new Indigo Child universe. It acts as an atlas of the fictional world that they're developing, this last remaining metropolis, explaining its social hierarchy from the outside in. It's built in these kind of ring structures, an inner ring building out into these outer rings, and of course there's different social hierarchies within each ring, and so each track on the album delves into the society within each ring, starts on the outside with ring 8 and builds its way inside into ring 1. And so it's an interesting journey lyrically and definitely musically. Deer Hunter, just to give some background, is a group that I really fell in love with back in the mid-2000s is when I discovered them. They had a series of albums known as the Act series, Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, all the way up to Act 5. This continuous musical story that was being told, and it was just a fantastic group of records, one of my favorite groups of records that I've ever listened to, and so it really catapulted me into being a major fan of the group. And they have an interesting place in the music landscape because they're not really purely prog in the same sense as a lot of the bands that I cover. They don't really go into that retro style old school symphonic prog like Flower Kings, Spock's Beard, these bands that really have similar sounds to the classic bands like Yes and Genesis and Pink Floyd and all these kind of classic artists. But the interesting thing that the Deer Hunter do is they have more of a modern rock aesthetic, almost in the like indie rock category. But they build in a lot of other influences from different genres of music. They're willing to insert more of a disco tune here, more of a jazzy kind of old school flavor here. All these different styles combine into something really remarkable and special that's unique in the musical landscape. And I like how they don't really fit into any preconceived genre label. They evolve into different things and are willing to pick and choose different elements in the music landscape. It could sound like the Beatles here, the Beach Boys here, ELO at this moment, but then more of a modern alternative sound here, maybe more of an indie rock flavor, like a Decemberists or even contemporaries like Reign of Kindo. But what's interesting is this new album really takes things to a different level and does things differently than they've done in the past. I think they're trying to really separate the musical landscape of where the Axe was musically to where this new storyline takes place, because they're really developing a concept and a world, and it has a very unique and individual style that's really fascinating. This album is much more funk inspired and more jazzy and has grooves and really cool horn sections and some really funky bass lines, and it has some pop influences, and I think it's a really fascinating sound. But they don't sacrifice their prog tendencies, if you want to call it that, the more adventurous nature of the music, the way they're willing to switch things up or have unique style melodies and things that sound different than you'd expect from just normal pop music, of course. And it all combines into this really fascinating sound that's uniquely them. And so it's hard for me to even describe the songs because they each have their own singular identity that's hard to pin down. But I really love the album as it moves from track to track as you build into this inner structure of this world. So the album starts off really interesting. You start in Ring 8, Poverty. And like I said, with the concept of the album, you kind of start out in the poorer areas and move towards the more elite power structures as you move inward. It starts off with some really cool percussion slowly building as you enter this new world. Really interesting sounds, upbeat, jazzy, groovy feel, almost an R&B type flavor to this. Interesting sounds throughout with interesting rhythms and percussion elements, and a really cool rocking section to end the track with. Really interesting, unique stuff that really speaks to me and just is pleasant to listen to, but dealing with this poverty-stricken section of the world and commentating on that as we move into Ring 7, Industry. This was the first single for the album, and it really grooves along with a funky bass solo in the middle is just really cool. Some great horns and groovy melodies, almost like a Michael Jackson inspiration to me, of just this really pop-centric feel and really fun, and grooves along at a great pace. Ring 6, we enter Lowtown, starting a bit slower with maybe a bit of a choir feel. As it moves along, it increases in its sound and has this big, expansive sound, but beautifully crafted. Maybe this is a track that feels the most in line with their previous works to me, but it still has that same jazziness and grooviness that has come to be known on this album, so with some sax even in the background as we move inwards to the middle class at Ring 5. Suite that goes through a lot of different feels, from bright and upbeat and fun at the start to a cool jam with horn section, atmospheric dreamy section with beautiful vocal harmonies. This is just a goosebump inducing section that's really gorgeous and has such a great feel and vibe to it that really spoke to me and captivated my attention. As we move into the Ring 4, Patrol, it starts with almost this cartoonish kind of melody as it builds, but then it moves into this almost 80s synth-inspired direction with some interesting keyboard work, has some pop-inspired hooks and a big chorus. Maybe one of the more straightforward, poppier songs on the record, but a whole bunch of fun as they describe the policing aspect of this world and you know, of course, drawing parallels to our world currently, especially here in the States. Ring 3, Luxury. We're getting into the more upper class group of people with this track, and it starts with a stomping beat and Hamilton-inspired like rap-style vocals. Not totally rap, but more spoken vocals that have that cadence that is familiar to Hamilton and the style that was built on there. But then it morphs as it goes through the track to different styles and sounds, to a more Caribbean-style beat with maybe some steel drum, and a really cool sound and great groove just continues this track as we learn about this not very rootable group of people here who just luxuriate in their own world without much care and attention to these other more poverty-stricken parts of their society. So it really, like I said, is really speaking to that social commentary that I think can draw a lot of parallels, especially to America, which is my frame of reference, and what's going on here with the different power struggle and people who are in poverty and people who are in the more elite class, and just how the rich keep getting richer and keep developing more and more power and setting things up in society to benefit them and to weaken the other people who are beneath them in their minds, you know. So it's a really great commentary, great lyrics throughout this piece. Now we move to Ring 2, Nature, which has kind of this fast acoustic guitar melody that charges along and creates a more upbeat track. Some proggy bits in there to give it a unique flavor and an interesting vibe to it. About 3 minutes in, the beat slows and there's kind of this harder, more interesting feel that builds up really nicely to the end of the track. And then Tower, that ends the album. The Ring 1 leaders of this world, I suppose, in their ivory tower. Just such a gorgeous, beautiful song with cool jazzy keys and interesting chord structures. Gets into awesome groovy kind of place, which just gives me such great feels and is such great ear candy and just gorgeous sonically. Just like the entire album, it's just a beautiful journey from the first track to the last. It grooves along. Every track has a unique flavor that really stands out, and they keep with this consistent groovy R&B style jazz vibe, but play within that framework in interesting ways where every song feels its own its own identity, which is important because each track is its own unique part of this world, and it all builds to this whole that describes this place. So it's really cool how they do that. It's great conceptually, it's great musically, and it just really stands head and shoulders as one of my favorite releases of the year. Just great production, great sounds, great build, and there's just nothing to complain about here. I just think this is a band that really deserves way more attention than they get. They should be superstars. This music is just so well written. Casey Crescenzo is just one of the best songwriters out there, and this album proves it. And I just can't say enough good things about the record. So I hope you guys will check it out if you have a chance to. It's really fun, and some people may not like the new direction they're going in. If you don't like that more horn-based, jazzy, funk-flavored music that they're going for with a little bit of a pop feel to the hooks and melodies, if you like more of what they did before in the Axe series, maybe this won't be as much for you, but I think it's worth exploring because even within that more poppier sound on the surface, you dig deeper and there's a lot of intricate things going on in the music. There's a lot of melodies that are not as conventional as you would expect and that are really interestingly crafted, and the subject matter is worth exploring because it really speaks to some societal issues that I think need more attention. And so this gets my stamp of approval. This is an incredible record, in the running for one of my favorite albums of the year, and I just want to spread the word about it because I'm that much of a fan of the group and feel they deserve it. So thank you guys for joining me. Hopefully you appreciated this review, and we'll go check out this music or enjoy whatever other music that you have going on. So thank you guys so much. Please subscribe if you haven't yet. If you like these sort of reviews, I cover hopefully most of the big new prog releases that come out, along with some other personal favorites like this one. So just a fun place to be if you care about good prog music. Thank you guys so much for your support once again, and I'll catch you guys in another video. Bye, everybody.
Why would the emperor need new clothes if he keeps the people in this